we go.
Farm companion. I do the clapping. Or
Who's clapping?
The hammering.
You're drumming? Who's drumming?
You clapping, I'm drumming. That's what it is.
Day before the 4th of July, July 3rd. It's July. Just like that. Feels like we kind of like suffer through the Aprils and Mays and June's like, it's getting there. And then as soon as you hit July, man, it's like, we're in it again.
Are you feeling it? We're in it now, huh?
We're in it now. We're in it now. I may have said that in the previous weeks. We're in it now.
See, I kind of feel, I suppose, that way in some regards, but like that brick wall that I talked about earlier, like there's a little bit because the work is done in large part. Like we've done a lot to set the stage here and stuff, and got some cameras out and ripping here recently, and so it's fun to see those bucks, that we suspected were there starting to turn up, but I also know we've got a little ways to go here.
Yeah. Not too long. I mean,
we're gonna have to fill the space with, we got TAC coming up, which will be fun, and some trips, and I'm gonna end up stacking that North Dakota, I think, on the front end of it probably, which brings the start date a little closer to grass. So
yeah, a lot closer actually. I mean, I think that yes, a lot of work's been completed on the farms. A lot ahead though, still. I mean, in terms of like I haven't made it to Ohio to do any of my spraying and stuff yet. There, we're within a couple weeks, give or take, of brassica planting for most of our farms. And like you said, cameras have just gone out. We were talking with DeQuisto at Lone Wolf about doing more of the Patriot series so we can get some permanent stands hung. So, over the next 4 to 6 weeks, a lot of things to just get to where then...
And we'll have the road show at our farm.
Yep, we have the road show and the TAC. Yeah, so there's a lot of things just kind of slowly snowballing together. For me, especially like that early season Kentucky, it's like probably right after your event in Ohio, which is the 9th of August?
I think so.
Like right after that, then there's a period of like, you're just waiting to pounce.
Yeah. See, I unfortunately, I feel like I'm kind of there. Like, I'm ready to pounce. It sucks because it's like you can almost get some of these bucks on a pattern early, and it's like it's a huntable pattern. And you're like, but there's nothing I can do about it.
I could kill them on.
It's just
pattern.
Stressful knowing that they're on a pattern. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah. No, it's so I was talking to a couple of guys, just chatting back and forth. We were talking about planting, and a lot of them seeing like that we were out spraying our beans and corn and stuff like that, and just getting, what are the hurdles that you have to face? Like for yours, it's mare's tail, in a lot of your plots, which do we know?
Just my big bean plot had some mare's tail on it. It wasn't that bad.
Do we know yet, like result wise, like if that cocktail smoked it?
Not yet.
Okay.
No, so I think as of today, I probably sprayed week and a half ago, and I have not been out to check them recently, so I'm just praying that my beans are alive.
It's not like, hey, it toasted the mare's tail and everything else.
Right, that'd be worst case scenario.
It was a mean cocktail, like like a concoction there.
Yep. And for better or worse, I mean, the potential negative of this strategy is like you don't want plants getting resistant to stuff that you're spraying. So I mean, you want to hit it with a full dose, but it was also the first time I was spraying, and it's strong stuff.
Yeah,
so I was a little gun shy on it. So I maybe went 80 to 85% of the rate.
I mean, dude, if you can just knock them back, especially at this time of year, those beans will explode. So if you can knock back that competition, for me, it's the Johnson grass like that. And honestly, I was surprised. Like in my beans, there was definitely some in there, but it wasn't that bad. And I assume that because that beans shades them out so fast, because I plant heavy, like what I said, it was like 85 pounds per acre plus of beans.
Yep.
That corn has a lot more space, and that shit was thick. I mean, I had Johnson grass that went from 12 inches to like 4.5 feet in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so like even at that stage, like they're not seed head out yet or anything, but like even a nasty dose of Gly it'll hurt them, but like, I don't know if it'll completely set it back.
You know,
at 4 feet, like that's a big plant.
Yeah.
The
Johnson grass, I mean, that's pretty manageable stuff though, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just
grasses generally can't hold it. I mean, it's those nasty broadleaves.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'll clean it up. It just it's the seed bed, really. Like just how persistent that is in the seed bed from because that was old cattle pasture. Anywhere that I nuke like whether I'm planting it or if I nuke it for like warm season grasses or something, that Johnson grass is the first thing to emerge in the And it's because like all of that stuff that I'm kind of cleaning up in the spring, that Johnson grass doesn't take off until like June. So it's like I could be nuking all of those cool seasons and things like that, and it just makes headway for that stuff to explode come June and July.
Sure.
So, so I've got to figure out, Skip will be my guy that I go to for some sort of, pre-emergence on that Johnson grass. I think it's probably simazine or atrazine and corn, but on the bean side, I don't know. I don't know if I can, I don't know what would be to use for that.
Yeah. Do you have a good co-op down there?
Not really.
Or no?
I mean, I have a county co-op, and they're great. Like, that's where I get all my corn and stuff like that, but it's not necessarily, because it's not ag country. It's cattle country.
Right.
So, like, they're not, I mean, they don't even
drive
sell
through anywhere? Is there somewhere on the way that would be good for that?
Not really. I'm coming through the mountains.
Yeah, I'm pretty fortunate with that. It's our guys know a lot. Like they got a couple of agronomists on staff and stuff. It's a nice resource to be able to.
I mean, I'm sure some of the local counties do, but I'd have to go further than on the way.
Yeah, you can definitely get it. I mean, I can send you what I used for my pre-emergent on the beans there. And that worked. It worked well.
Yeah, I thought yours were really clean. I mean, besides the mare's tail that we talked about.
Definitely. There was there's a little bit of stuff coming up here and there, but I mean, that's why they're glide resistant. Go back and hit it with that. And I'd like to not have to hit it with this cocktail again in the future. So I don't know if, I've talked about converting to like an E3 bean or, there's other bead blends out there. You don't want to sacrifice like the palatability, or the...
Which is what we've heard for, is it the Enlist that we've been talking about with that?
Well, generally the Enlist beans are smaller and harder and not as like oily, which is the opposite of what you want. So some guys will say,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, some guys will say that they won't eat them, that they don't like the Enlist beans as much.
That's what I've heard.
But, it's also just kind of like, how many people are out there planting, the best of the best forage bean compared to something, a farmer. All the farmers are planting stuff that is as manageable as possible from a weed perspective. So
I will say I was not all the spots, but most of them. I was pleasantly surprised with how well my corn's doing, because I planted my corn the same time I planted beans.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't get out there earlier to do it.
High yet? Today's 4th of July.
I'm
tomorrow.
The one plot. So this is where, like, if you, and we've talked about, being able to turn a clover area, whether it's brassicas, or in my case, I turned a big clover and alfalfa field. I turned about 1.5 acres in that into a cornfield. And that clover and alfalfa fixes nitrogen, right? So for the last 2 to 3 years, it's been fixing nitrogen, which is really what corn wants. Right. Like that's what it's craving.
And electrolytes.
Yeah, that field's like over waist high at this point. And I planted it 4 weeks ago.
Wow.
Like, I mean, it's exploded.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And honestly, I didn't think I got that great of seed to soil contact, because it was harder just versus like the areas that I'd planted previously in soybeans and stuff. But the other areas I was going to say that the corn is doing really well is where was previous soybeans, because that also was fixing nitrogen.
Yeah.
So, if you're starting to think about, first of all, I run corn through that shitty Tar River drill. I know a lot of people are like, well, no till and drill, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, sure. It's not nearly as evenly spaced and as perfect as it would be with a corn planter. But, I mean, all I'm looking to do is grow ears of corn. Like, I don't really care if it's uneven spaced or whatever.
Right.
And that thing did great again. So it definitely, like I said, had some Johnson grass because of the space that it gave up. But, I used Roundup Ready this year. So that was expensive, but probably well worth it.
Yeah.
And I foresee, and, that stuff starting to put ears on probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And I strategically position most of those cornfields where I plan on mowing it at some point.
Yeah. That's the move.
Yeah. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. But it definitely made a huge difference compared to previous years where I've planted corn where I didn't have clover or beans in there. And, like, it felt like I was just applying nitrogen, just trying to get that to go. And I think because those areas had been fixing nitrogen naturally for so long, yeah, it took off, know. And so clearly there'll be some rotational plants that have to get
you sprayed
put in.
that corn this past week then, or?
Yep, I sprayed the corn with crop oil, Gly, 2 quarts of Gly, and Nitro Grow, and the 31818.
Oh, okay.
All in the same tank.
Yeah.
Yep. So I hit it with more nitrogen plus 31818,
right,
and 2 quarts of Gly.
Cool.
Yep. So I expect it to really take off. In fact, I'll show you this. I don't think our people. Well, maybe I could show it up on the screen here. This is the first time I was like looking through like from my camera picture side. You can see all the corn in the
back.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And then
you sent me some pictures.
Yep.
Oh, it's nice you can see it on your. That's the best part about trail cameras in the summer, other than Velvet Box. Obviously,
seeing it grow,
monitoring your food
and then
plots.
everything in the foreground there is alfalfa and clover.
Oh, cool.
And then there's a big pond right there.
Nice.
So that's a really nice early season setup there. To get having the water close by, and then that kind of secludes it because it's basically 15 or 20 rows of corn deep. Yep. But yeah, no, it looked good, and yeah, I mean, as long as that Johnson grass and stuff clears up, I'm good. My beans look great. Like, I was really impressed with those. They're definitely hammering them. In fact, I think I told you I talked to my neighbor across the road who's got a 350-acre cattle farm, and we had a good conversation. He kind of looks over the place, and I let him hay some of the stuff that I don't do anything with. Mm-hmm. And when I was over there, I was filling up my sprayer because I don't have water at the farm yet, which is getting there, but. He was like, man, he's like, since you bought this place, he's like, it's amazing how many deer are around here now. Like, just taking control. I mean, obviously doing work to it, but more of just keeping people,
not killing them, displacing,
keeping
people.
them out.
Yeah.
Yep. And he's like, it's crazy. He's like, I saw 3 bucks here. I saw a really good one here. He told me about his daughter missed a really big one on the last day of rifle last year. So yeah, I mean, it's cool to hear that from the neighbors, like they're seeing results, because then clearly, like, you're making a difference. Like, one property owner can make a difference.
For sure.
And my other neighbor, he owns about 350 acres next to me. He's told him the same thing. He said, hey, when you see that guy, just tell him he's doing the right thing.
Huh.
So it's cool to hear from those guys. So, like, together, not that we're on the same page necessarily. Like, the one neighbor he's 80 years old. He's shooting the first 1-year-old he sees because he's like, that might be the last buck I kill. Good, dude, man. Have at it.
Sure.
Like, and then Leonard, who's across the cattle farm across the road, like, he's mainly taking his daughter and his grandkid out. Mm-hmm. But it's cool to hear them see that, because then it kind of opens my eyes a little bit to where if I'm ever questioning, like, am I doing the right thing? Is it working? Like, am I just spinning my wheels? Like, if they're seeing it, then yes, it's working.
It's good feedback.
So yeah, and I mean, I'm definitely seeing more deer on that property. There's still not a lot. Like, we're still in a low deer density area. But there's definitely more deer on that property, and you're starting to see some of these age class of bucks, like in the 2- and 3-year-olds. Like, I'm like, wow, there's a big group of 3-year-olds or a big group of 2-year-olds, where before it was like a 2-year-old, a couple 1-year-olds, and a 3-year-old. Well,
that's what's so fun and satisfying about, like, the habitat management aspect of all of this is it really is, like, it's unending. You know what I mean? It's a it's just like you learn something new every year, and then makes you think about a different part of the farm and realize, oh man, I could be doing so much better in this area here, or by the time you finish with this project, something else happens here. And like, it can be overwhelming if you try to take it all on it, at once.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you look at it, I mean, it really is like a lifelong, depending on the size of your property and where you're starting at, where you want to go.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like I've had this conversation with a bunch of people that are like us that manage farms, but also people that are just like public land hunters. And I'm like, there's a great case in point to, like, not like egotistically, but the work I'm doing is benefiting everybody in that area. And whether they start to pass up more deer because they're seeing better bucks, or like regardless, it's one landowner's impact can have a huge impact on the entire herd and other people's hunting experiences. Yeah. And so, like, we've talked about the, like, private and public barriers before, and it's like, man, I appreciate when there's really good private land against public, because maybe those deer are spending more time on the private, but for a good reason. Like, it's a better quality habitat. It's a better quality property, but that entire herd in that area is better because of it.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's just trying to understand those.
Well, the reality is too, like, a few a few guys or a few even small properties, depending on the state and the the rules and stuff that are there, they can really make a negative impact on the entire herd. And so if you are able to like displace them somehow, surgically remove, or even if it's not intentional, but if you end up buying the property that these guys used to shoot 10 2-year-olds a year type of a thing, and those deer have the chance to live another year or two, it can really make an impact at scale.
Well, I think that's a big one, and maybe over the next few farm companions we can talk, because people have asked a couple things. One, they've wanted to hear more about like how we're buying properties and stuff, or what we're looking for in properties, and we can get into that. But like I would say, like, even with this property, like I didn't know anything about the neighborhood. I didn't know anything about the current deer hunting on the property. I bought it because it was close to my cabin down there, and it had open ground in essentially a mountainous area that like doesn't have open ground. Like those were the only, and it was for the right price, right? I think I paid $1,600 an acre. So like those were the three factors of why I bought it. Now, when I did get that, like there's a buck this year, he'll be a 4-year-old, probably just, I don't know, standard 8-point, 4-year-old 8-point. I had him I've watched him as a 1-year-old. In fact, as a 1-year-old, he got shot during rifle season. He had like a shot through his neck down his back, like you could see the bullet trail.
Wow.
And but he made it, and like he made it at 2, he made it at 3. He's gonna be a 4-year-old this year. So it's cool to see like those deer definitely weren't. They were subjected to hunting. Like people were trying to kill those deer. Now, like they're being able to make it multiple years just because of the work that's being done on the property and the control there. So I think that as you start to, because there are good properties, there are bad properties, there are properties that are, I don't know if you'll ever be able to get them there from an age class side simply because of what the dynamics are around you. Mm-hmm. But no property is going to be perfect, and you can definitely walk into a property that is not favorable and make it favorable.
Yeah.
Is it going to be amazing? Is it going to be like an Iowa property? No, it won't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is, pressure is the one that's like,
that's it.
There is good habitat and bad habitat. I mean, that does exist.
Yes.
But any habitat can be improved.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, like in most parts of the whitetail range, if you can improve the habitat or there's decent habitat, and you can manage the pressure, then they will be there. Mm-hmm. So the fun part then is figuring out like not just how to improve the habitat, but how does that tie into a hunting strategy, and how do you maximize the property's holding potential and hunting potential by, I'm not saying not hunting it, but keeping the pressure off it and hunting it in a way that they don't know that they're being hunted.
Yeah.
And it's hard to understand what that looks like on your property until you have had hundreds, if not thousands, of conversations with people who have been successul at it, and then and then apply it to your own. Then over the course of years, you start to see deer do certain things or live. Hey, this one got, I don't know how, every other deer got killed in these areas. You're like, oh, okay, well maybe. Because, and then you start to put the pieces together, and eventually it's like, man, you can really turn it into something.
Well, and I think on the habitat side, like I agree. I think there's good habitat and there's bad habitat. In retrospect to a specific area, though, like you're all on a fairly level playing field, right? It's not like if my farm's here and your farm's here, I have Iowa type habitat and you have not Iowa type habitat. Like very rare cases, maybe where like the mountains meet the ag and things like that. But most of it's like, hey, the soils are the soils.
I mean, Iowa's a good example where the habitat's not that great. It's just there's not that much pressure.
Not that much pressure.
You know what I mean? So I do think pressure supersedes habitat.
Yeah, and I say
in a lot of cases,
not in a selfish way, but I say that because like also like our Illinois farm has way better soils than most of the places we hunt in Iowa. Mm-hmm. Via productivity.
Sure.
Like the levels are there. It's measurable. It's a comparable or apples to apples type of thing.
Right.
But the pressure around that Illinois farm is just a heck of a lot different than you see in the Iowa stuff.
Yep.
And so even when you're within like your Ohio farm, my Ohio farm, my Kentucky farm, it's like if I can make this property, this is kind of like a Bomar thing, right? It's like if I can get this property in an area and nobody else is making good habitat changes and I make good habitat changes, The deer are going to utilize me better.
I mean, not to deviate too much, but it is interesting to see, and we've had conversations previously that maybe tie into why this would be, but like, I mean, dude, we have 200-inch potential in Ohio in areas where the soil quality is nothing special.
Your farm has 200-inch potential.
That's what I mean. Yeah. And a lot of others do. Yeah.
And it's not good soil. I mean, your cash rent's what, $80 an acre or something?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it doesn't have great soil productivity by any means.
Right.
But you have 200-inch potential. There's deer that are 3 and 4 years old that have multiples over the last 10 years on that property that are like, that's a 200-inch deer.
And it's not like they're not going to hit it because from a nutritional standpoint.
No, it's an age standpoint.
And I don't know enough about dirt to maybe it's something like a specific a lot of guys will say it's phosphorus or
like a micronutrient,
a specific micronutrient or mineral or something. Mm-hmm. The very fact that we can have minerals in Illinois, or I'm sorry, in Ohio.
But I would say it's genetics, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a nutritional component for sure. Mm-hmm. Has to be, as well as age and as well as I mean, those would be the three, but. It's interesting, because it's like
I don't know how to explain that.
There you have it. You have deer that can and will, if they're allowed to live that long, they will reach 200 inches.
I mean, hypothetically, not saying you do this. Hypothetically, if you would drop a fence around your property, you could grow 200-inch deer.
No doubt.
I would say that most
people... We can also grow 120-inch deer. We grow
right.
plenty of them.
Right.
So it's not like this whole area has 200-inch
But there is... Well, we were looking at those ties. Like this big 4-year-old you have this year... We went back to unicorn buck, same genes.
Yeah.
Likely the same genes as the 180 that we saw last year.
I'd bet money. Well, I'd bet money on that it's a unicorn genetic. Whether it's the 180, a smaller bet.
But those are the deer, like that, whatever, that little cohort of genetics has 180 to 200-inch potential.
Yeah.
Then you go to something like GR8, right?
Yeah.
He's 130-inch potential. Right? So and that's in any herd. It's just... Every herd's going to have that lower level. Mm-hmm. Not every herd's going to have that upper level potential. Mm. And that's purely genetics. I mean, if every deer on your property is maxing out at 8 points, which is typical for a mature whitetail, you're not going to grow a 200-inch deer. But if you can throw 10s and 12s, like if your property, that's the one thing I look at all the time, is if somebody shows me history of the property, number one, I'm trying to find any deer making it to 5, right? Or maturity. I don't care if it's an 8 point or whatever, as long as some deer made it to maturity. Then it's like the first thing I go to is it all 6 and 8s, or am I seeing 9s and 10s and 12s in the mix? Mm-hmm. And the moment I see that, I've got 170-inch potential.
Sure.
Now, it's a challenge where you're at, but it's at least an obstacle that you can overcome to get to.
We mentioned earlier about, looking at farms that we're buying. It's like if you... And you can't always have that knowledge going into it.
No.
Just there might not be any trail camera pictures. No. I mean, there's ways to get that. You can make a contingent on, hey, immediately I want to get, run some picture cameras on this thing or something like that.
That's what I did on my Kentucky farm. I was running a camera in November. I didn't close it until December. And in November, I didn't have many deer on there, but I got two different times I got pictures of a mainframe 11 that was probably a 4-year-old in the high 50s.
Wow.
And I'm like, potential.
Yeah. So then the risk, assessment becomes, here we have the genetic potential. Here we have the age. Here's what I've been able to observe. Do I think that I can get these deer to a huntable age class? That's it.
That's it. That's all it takes.
You almost always can improve the habitat. Can I are they going to be able to survive? Can I get them? So then you start looking at neighbors, and some of that stuff takes longer to unfold. Well, you might not know.
I mean, dude, it's going to take still, even with that, like it's going to take 5 to 6 years at least to realize if you're actually going to be able to accomplish that goal. Like that deer that I was watching, and there's several of them that they were 1 when I bought the property. They're going to be 4 this year. And not most, but I mean, 3 or 4 of them made it through. Next year, it'll be like, wow, I've watched those deer go from 1 to 5.
Yeah.
Whether that's because of external factors or what I've done on the property, they've been able to do that.
Well, there should be some others too. I mean, I'm sure when you bought the property, there were 2 and 3-year-old deer.
Yep. And I've got one that's going to be a 6-year-old this year. And I think I should have one that could be a 5-year-old this year. Mm-hmm. but there weren't many because that age class had been getting killed.
They're just getting hunted, yeah.
You know, so these guys were the first. They were. It was their first rack, and it was the first year I had control during the hunting season.
There's just inherently going to be less of them too, you know. So and it does take time to get a grasp on your inventory.
Yeah.
And maybe you could be more intentional and do a better job if you really cataloged and said, here's every single, you know, buck of every, but who does that? Yeah. You know what I mean? Not everybody's marked, right?
Yeah.
Like some guys are extremely.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, if I go through, like I've got sections in my phone where it's like, I did all the velvet pictures last year. So I can see all these 3 and 4 year olds and the 1 5-year-old I had back in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it isn't, but it is to see when you've started to take control of the farm, you know, basically add 4 years onto that. And that would be the first time that cohort that you had full effect on gets to 5 years old. And even that, I would say wait another year because then you've got that fawn year crop that's getting to 5 years old.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, not that I haven't thought about selling farms before then where I'm like, man, this is almost impossible. But like in true reality, if I want to give the farm a full shot, it's 5 or 6 years after purchase to really know what you got.
Yeah.
And even that, like if one neighbor can come into an area and change the game, right? One neighbor could leave the area and change the game in a positive way. If you've got one bad egg in that area and they move away, they pass away, whatever, something happens, like that entire area could change just like it was if one good person moved in and changed the area.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, things happen, like natural stuff too. I mean, you could have a tornado come in or, you know, and knock down like make a giant clear cut essentially. You could have somebody literally do a timber project and, you know, that.
Ice storms, timber, standard timber harvest, like gas wells come in, like anything. Like there's a lot of different factors that come into play that just continually change it. So, I mean, as much as you try to keep a thumb on it year after year, like there will be external changes that happen that are going to also affect the work that you've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's just a constant chess game. I mean, you're gonna lose, you know, gain and lose stuff. You know, I mean, there's deer that I have history with that I won't have an opportunity to chase probably this year. You know, I mean, as properties change hands and stuff like that. But there's also ones that, you know, reveal themselves at certain times. You know, like, I mean, dude, there's deer on public this year that I'm like that. He's got booner potential all day long. Thought he was 4 years old last year. I mean, he's one that I would. So I mean, it's just like the more of those irons you can have in the fire, it's like one or a few of them is bound to work out. You know, so
the options thing is
now's the time to start, you know, whittling those down, seeing where they're all at. You know, it's all chessboard. You know?
I mean, I think that's one. And listen, it's got its detriments too. Like we've talked all the time. Like when it's good in one farm, it's usually good in others because of weather fronts and stuff. But you know, the reason I think we've set up like we have in Ohio, Kentucky, you know, Illinois, hunting Kansas this year is like it throughout the 3 to 4 months of hunting season, it's options, right? Like we're never pigeonholed into like we have one deer on one farm, and if that deer gets killed, our season's over. Right. Like there were plenty of seasons I lived that way where I had one deer on one farm, and whether he got killed or he disappeared or whatever, like it was basically I just wandered around for 2 weeks like a lost puppy. Like what am I going to do next? Yeah. Now it's like there's always another option. Maybe I got to drive further. Maybe I won't hunt it as much because it is further, but there's always another option out there to go and do it. Like even up here on public, I've got cameras running. I've got several mature deer on there that'll be, you know, whenever I'm not hunting Ohio or Kentucky or we're out in the Midwest, like I'll go after work and hunt the mountain, you know, and I only hunt them 4 or 5 times, but like it's an option to have out there. And I think that's what people have to look at. Like not that I, you know, get angry about it or anything, but it's like, I don't like hearing, well, like I just don't have anything here. And I'm like, cool, go somewhere else, you know? And I'm not saying it's easy or I'm not saying it's convenient because it usually isn't. But like if you're hunting public land in Pennsylvania and you're like, man, I don't really have anything. All right, we'll go try to hunt public in Ohio or go to a different part of Pennsylvania and hunt. Or, you know, it's easier. I know it's easy to be said, but like that's the reality that has to happen is like you just need to go hunt somewhere else. If they're not there, they're not there.
Yeah. Yeah. It is challenging. I mean, it's, you know, it doesn't just happen. You know what I mean? You don't just be like, oh, I have this, you know, amazing. I mean, Hopefully it does. I would love that for everybody. If you're like, I just have this amazing place to go and there's great deer. I mean, that's amazing. That's what everybody would dream of, is just have a place like that. But more often than not, yeah, you got to be proactively, creating new opportunities or planting seeds, to hopefully get access to something down the road. And it can it'll change your season, and potentially open up a whole new world. If, one right conversation with somebody that owns, a piece of property or a few pieces or whatever, is like, that can make or break your season.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking to Ty Easley the other day, and like Ty's got 4 or 5 really nice properties within 30 minutes of him. Yeah, he's got options, and
happens to everybody. Well, he lost one. He was just saying,
yeah,
hey, I just lost a really good farm, and it sounds like a few of the ones that he hunts, he's lost and then regained. Over years past. I know Sturgis and Jen lost one of their leases this year, and
but they didn't wait around. They immediately were like, okay, let's go find something else.
Yeah, well, and that's probably a core takeaway. Like, in the guys that you're seeing be successful, like year after year, they're putting in that work. I mean, sometimes years in advance, if not like way before season. Not that things can't happen last minute. I mean, that definitely happens too. But the work that we've done up until this point, I mean, dude, I'm not going to, but we could essentially sit back and say, I know we're going to have good deer on some of these. We've got access in 5 states to thousands of acres, and that's come from 10 or 15 years, of proactively seeking that out and making relationships. And it's like, eventually, those start to compound and you find yourself in a pretty decent situation, or at the very least with options when a plan doesn't work out.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that it's a gimme to go and kill something. It's just you're in the game at
Absolutely
least,
not.
right? Which is all we talk about it every year. It's like, all I want to do is be in the game for a class of animal that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And if I am, that's all I can ask for.
That's all you can ask for.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. So, yeah, I hope that people listen to this and whether they're working on their own place and, at first I would say manage your expectations, right? If you're on a 40 and you have a 5-year-old using that property, that's pretty damn good, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's a big step. But I mean, manage your expectations, what you hear. Like we talk about here, like my goal in Pennsylvania is to kill a 4-year-old or older.
Yep.
I'd love to kill a 5-year-old, but like there's not many of them at all. And so just manage your expectations. And, if you get time, I tell people all the time, during that season time frame, or even just leading up like September and October, man, I probably spend more time in the woods here in Pennsylvania, at least just bouncing around, looking for fresh scrapes, throwing up a cell cam here or cell cam there, just to try to find deer than I do sitting in a stand. Like, there's no real point of just sitting somewhere if I don't even know if the class of deer that I want is in that area. Now, if you're just out to like kill a buck with a bow, different ball game, right? But if you're looking for a specific age class or something, then you got to go find them and know that they're there before you start, putting down roots and spending time in a tree. So yeah, it's just making yourself mobile. I do think that right now, probably more than I've ever realized, having beads on past scrapes that have been used during the season has been, I don't get them like a daily consistent thing, but weekly I'm getting shooter bucks hitting scrapes. And that's a cool feeling to just be like, those cameras are some of these cameras on the mountain have been there since this time last year. I haven't touched them.
I mean, dude, I think those scrapes can be like, they may be the most important thing. You know what I mean? In terms of like piecing together a movement pattern. Because what's so cool is, I mean, you can move things like food sources and bedding areas, but it's not easy. You know what I mean? That's challenging. That requires a lot of work, and you really are going to be tied to the topography. And scrapes and stuff are too, but they are much more easily manipulated.
Absolutely.
And you can really use those to your advantage. I mean, dude, I build most of our spots around not necessarily a scrape tree, but it's all in one. Like the best spots that I could possibly, create on my farm have a natural topography movement adjacent to bedding, transitional to feeding with, in a lot of cases, I've put a transitional food source in there. It's got some sort of clover, brassicas. It's got a vine scrape. More often than not, I lean pretty hard on those. It's got a water hole probably, and most importantly, it has dynamite access.
Yeah,
it has rock solid access. You can kill every single deer on a farm like that. You're not going to have as many of those spots as you may want to have tree stands. Like at one time on our Ohio farm, I had 30 tree stands scattered everywhere, and maybe there's probably 30 spots you could kill deer out of. But there's probably only 4 or 5 spots that I know have those rock solid access. And so, rather than, rather than adjusting those stands every year and trimming everything out, like we used to do all that, I put almost all of that effort into those spots and improving them and further solidifying and isolating them and you know, making the access perfect and stuff like that. And any additional time I have, I go out and try to find more of those.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think that's where the time should be spent. You know, and if you're on public or anything and you can't create those things, you can still find bedding. You can still use the topography for movement. You can still find and make those scrapes.
Dude, if you zoom out and look like at the macro scale, I just year after year, like you know, we used to just like be like a property. Here's all the pinch points. Here's all the edges. Here's all the food sources. You know, and then you'd go in and just like hang all these tree stands. But if to hunt a property well, and I think to have like a plan that keeps the pressure off the entire property, and really what you're trying to promote is, you know, be look at these deer to live on it and live from year to year. It really does. It gets easier, you know, but it also becomes more like, dude, you really just hunt the fringes. You know what I mean? You really just on. I mean, ideally, you have an eastern access farm, or you can access it from the eastern edge somehow. On southwest ones, you're hunting the north end of the farm. On northwest ones, you're hunting the south end of the farm, or a certain Bucks Court area type of thing.
Yep.
The only time you go in, you know, is if you have dynamite access to the spot, you know. And so if for every 3 stands that I have around kind of the perimeter on the downwind edge of bedding areas, food sources, stuff like that, maybe even more than that, 3 to 5 stands, I have 1 stand that's an interior, you know, and you hunt that in the, you know, the first 3 weeks of November.
I think that's the hardest part for people is the access thing, right? Because even when you find that dynamite spot, sometimes it's just like, well, what's the easiest way for me to get in it? And that doesn't necessarily mean that's the best access to get in.
Dude, that's where people, I mean, access is the most important thing by far. I think that's where most people are shooting themselves in the foot is poor access to their stands.
Yeah, I completely agree. Guilty myself until I got new roads put in Ohio for sure. Like I had one access point, it was right up the gut.
Yep.
You know, and like no
those are the worst farms. I can say that because we have one. You know, and that's how a lot of them were made, especially in hill country. It's like, you know, sometimes it's from the west. It's even worse. But I mean, anytime your property is just big timber knobs overlooking little ag in the middle, and your one road is right up through the middle of it, freaking every deer hears you at the house at the front of it. You know, if you're driving your machine up through there, they see you coming. They're bedding on those knobs.
Yep.
You can't. You're going to have a very low success rate.
My Kentucky farm initially doesn't set up well from an access standpoint, but I've divided it up to where essentially I access all to the east of my food, and I've got good bedding to the west of that food. So I'm coming in and I'm basically hunting the perimeter of, call it the western side of my farm, right? Which I have food and then I have bedding. So I am accessing it from the east, and but I still have a large chunk of property to the east of that access. But it's a giant valley. So I'm up on top versus the other way around, where the deer are up on top looking down at me. I'm up on top and they're down in the bottom. And I get away with a little bit more that way just because as they're coming up out, you know, it's not, or they're not watching me walk by them.
Yeah.
But it's still not perfect.
Yeah. And they rarely are. I mean, I'm not saying that every farm has to be eastern access type of thing. It's just, if you break it down to options, an east access farm is going to give you the most options, because on
absolutely
anything north, anything south, anything west,
you're golden.
You're going to have an option there, as opposed to a western access farm. There is no, you know,
which is our Illinois farm.
Straight west wind is going to be
Primarily.
challenging. Yeah. So in a situation like that, you know, you're tied to southwest winds and northwest winds, and that pushes you to one or the other end of the farm. We're fortunate to have backdoor access from the east, you know, to get into a few of our interior stands.
But otherwise, we hug our north and south boundary hard. That's the only way we can get into them.
Yeah. Or you have a big dead space in the middle, which is wasted acreage.
Yep.
You know, and you know, you can utilize that too. And then the same is true for north or south farms. You know, it's just basically, a north access farm is going to be really challenging to hunt on north winds. Yeah. You're going to have to hug the eastern end of it. It's not rocket science. It's just like, you know, look at how the prevailing wind is coming here, and different topography will give you different options there too. But it's just,
yeah. But most people, you know, it seems like, and it's not necessarily from a hunting side as much as it's probably the farming aspect and things like that, or logging aspect in some cases. You know, it's just the road is there based on topography. Like whatever the trail is there because the topography was suitable for a road or a trail there. And so it's extremely hard to essentially put the road out of commission during a hunt, right? When you've got one that like, well, this one just runs right here and it's going to go right back. It's like, well, yeah, but all of your wind is blowing back into this bedding. All of these deer are sitting up here watching you. I understand that road's there, but that's the worst possible way to get to that spot. And the process is like, well, but it's so clean. Like I'm not walking through anything.
Well, the next level of complexity is, understanding that especially a mature buck is not going to move without the wind in his favor. And maybe, there's situations where you can capitalize on that or where like there's obviously exceptions. I'm excited I reached out to the whitetail research guy that are doing all this.
They're doing the thermal drone stuff.
I assume he uses thermal. The first video there was mainly daylight stuff. It's all daylight observation. And so you can track, he's tracking movement patterns. And I think we knew this already, but it's cool to just see, how smart, especially those mature bucks really do use the wind to their favor. They're getting up and moving midday depending on thermals. And when you can understand, that's the animal we're hunting, so it's great to think that like, great, west wind, I'm on this side of it. Like that's checkers, right? That makes sense. But the chess element is to start to understand that, okay, there's another living, breathing 6-year-old animal who also understands these terrain features and natural factors way better than we do. They live in it every day. They use
survival.
It's survival for them. And so it then becomes, if you can understand that and put that overlay on your understanding of the farm and whittle it down to, like I said, not those 30 stands that you had there, but 4 or 5 where it's like those are the areas you can capitalize where they'll make a mistake thinking they have the advantage.
Yep.
That's where you kill the big ones.
Yep. I agree. Yeah. I mean, I think it's, we're getting to that time of the year, especially as food's getting established and bucks are showing up or you're even in a place like Illinois. We were talking about before, like
there's no deer there.
There's no deer on that farm.
Yeah.
They just aren't there, which is great for our beans and stuff. Cause like they grow unimpeded. But yeah, I mean, it's strategically though, we know what's going to happen here as we get closer to the fall and into the fall, obviously. And so, we just, we take the last 2 years of hunting seasons and understanding what deer are doing and understanding our wind and where they're bedding and how they're moving. And like, we pretty much know our access routes at this point. It's like, hey, these are just how we get to
Illinois
these spots.
Is dialed in.
Yeah. And it's just, now it's a matter of the deer just have to be there to kill them, right? In other places, it's, if it's a repeat offender, essentially, like you've got these deer coming back that you've built history on it, then you've got that pattern that you can utilize moving into this year. But if it's a newbie or a new farm or something like that, then yeah, I mean, you've got to kind of start to play that chess game again.
It is fun to, as safely, as much as you want to hunt those rock solid stands like that have the perfect, and those are the staples, I think, of any property. It is really fun. I still really enjoy it. And I mean, this is where like the lone wolf, where those stands come in helpful is like, there are situations where if you can take a calculated risk, and if exactly where he's betting at, I'll push in there with the right access and try to get within 60, 80, 100 yards of them.
Just has to be the right conditions, man. And those right conditions only align so many times a year. So why not take the risk?
Yeah. Those calculated risks, I mean, they can pay off big. And they're, the downfall is you can only do it a handful of times because they catch on to you pretty quick. And
it's funny. Those are the things that like when we talk to like the Midwestern guys, whether it's Brackett or whoever, and it's like, those guys don't like risk like that. No. And it's because they're hunting 100 days a year,
I think that's the, what's the word? It's like the Iowa syndrome.
Yeah. We'll just sit back and wait, and eventually he'll slip up.
And they will.
Yep. They will. But it's like, well, I only have 7 days. I need to basically be in a place where he didn't slip up, but I still killed him.
Right.
And it is risky.
Sometimes you got to get in there and get your hands dirty.
It absolutely is risky. But yeah, I mean, that's the reality, I think, for most people listening to this is like, we don't have 100 days a year to hunt, just.
It's a calculated risk. Dude, it's funny. Even that temptation buck that I passed last year, I don't know if I've said this part of it. It's very possible that deer saw me climb in the tree stand, like in the dark. I can't confirm for sure, But there definitely was a good sized deer, probably a buck that like I literally I was hanging the stand. I was hanging a lone wolf in the morning, slept in the back door, and I'm at the top of my steps getting ready to hang the stand, and there's eyes like freaking 20 yards, 25 yards, like looking right at me, and I eventually I don't think I can't remember if he blew but he just left at like those nighttime encounters.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that sucks. I don't know what deer that was, and then later on I had that encounter with that. You chased a doe in, and I think it was pretty high likelihood that was that deer. And granted, he was a 3-year-old at the time, maybe a 6-year-old wouldn't have done that, but
and November 1st, his brain wasn't quite
that's what
right.
I'm saying. So there is a time where it's like, you take a calculated risk and understand the mindset that they're in at that time, and freaking you can make it happen.
Well, I mean, I even look at the Big 11 last year during gun season that you almost killed. If it wasn't for that doe catching your wind in the bottom, that deer in the right mind would have also caught you. The only reason he boogered out is because the doe boogered out. He wasn't in his right mind.
I know. What a close call.
If he was by himself, he would have slipped in there and you would have killed him.
Oh, I read that situation exactly right too. I knew where to be. I knew he would move eventually.
Yeah, it was just she was still sharp enough to pick it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there are plenty of times that it.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, I know guys. My uncle's one of them. He's like, when November comes, he basically is like caution to the wind as far as wind. And I don't agree. Frankly,
No.
he and I disagree on that. I'm like, dude, maybe the bucks are not. They're definitely not like in their right frame of mind. But they will still pick you up. And those,
we're not talking about 1 and 2 year olds here.
Yeah, you still got to be smart about it.
I agree. But yeah, you definitely can get more into their wheelhouse and pull more aggressive moves. But like you said, you can only get away with it, a couple times.
We'll wrap it up with this. I really do think you can kill every single buck you're after on a scrape at one point or another. I think there's enough opportunities where they hit those in daylight. I mean, dude, it's just when it rains. And it stops raining, and it's like a hub scrape for them. It's a core, whatever you call them. It's a primary scrape that is on their loop. They're gonna hit it.
They're gonna hit it.
That's how I killed that Iowa buck.
They have to
in the first 2 hours of being there last year. When that rain lets up and it's right in their wheelhouse, they have to hit it. They have to go freshen it up. They have to assert their dominance at that time of year.
I agree.
If you can have those scrapes made ahead of time and have good access to stands to hunt them, they should die there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, I think especially in October, there's not a more deadly place to kill one than on a scrape.
I don't know if you saw on the grassy knoll, right? So it's not just like, hey, I put a scrape in and all of a sudden we're going to kill a deer off this spot. It's one of those spots that has that great access. It's a high point. It's adjacent to bedding, and I did a lot of work on it this year.
Created some food.
I put some food up there, small
buffered
clover
it in.
alfalfa. I buffered it in really nice with that deer fence. And I put a freaking mock scrape right in the middle of it. And I'll guarantee you we kill a good one off that. It's not like an if. It's when that right one pops out there.
Yeah, he's dead. He's
done.
within range right
He's
there.
done.
Well, and that's all corn too. We were talking about just the way that they're going to end up using the corn edge even to move back and forth in that bedding. They have to come up over that knob.
Have to. And that's perimeter stand. That's a south access. So we hunt that on northwest winds or north winds. Potentially, solely in the morning, depending on, because
the thermal rise on that.
It's not perfect, but yeah.
Yeah, man. And that's it. There's so many, it isn't rocket science, but you have to consider all of the factors at play. And it's hard for a lot of us, growing up, it was like, you just hunted, I went to the same 2x4 built stand. The wind could have been dead wrong, but like that was my stand. That's the only stand I had. Like I didn't go anywhere else, and now it's like understanding the factors at play and where you're going and why you're going there. There's just, if you sit back and you think about it strategically, and unfortunately we have technology that's allowing us to look at these weather conditions, days in advance, although they're not always right. You can at least get a pretty solid plan of why a stand will or will not be a good fit for the day that you're going to hunt.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to look at.
Yeah, and it becomes a game of odds. Like it's not like every time you and I go hunting, it's like we know exactly where the thing's at or what he's going to do. It's just a calculated decision, based on history and recent information on where he's at and stuff like that. And yeah, you just hunt smart. You know what I mean? It's like over time, you know, I mean, you play enough of those cards, right? You know, one's going to slip up, you know,
Yeah.
or the one you're after, you know, I mean, depending on how tightly in.
Yeah, and per our aggressive conversation, you know, keep in mind, what are you doing? If you're hunting your 40 that's out your back door, like, don't dive bomb in the most aggressive stand right out of the gate unless you think you're going to kill them. Like, you got time, it's right there. But if you're going on a 3-day or 5-day out-of-state trip that you're not coming back, like, yeah, dude, you best be rolling the dice almost every day.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that, you know, 5 days is gone in a flash, and like you know, if you were hunting the perimeter waiting for him to come out, like, and it just wasn't working, like, you're not going to kill him,
right?
You know, so yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, somebody asked the other day because they were like just getting into the bow hunting side, and they're like, how do I get more? I was like, dude, just as crazy as it seems, in October especially, and even into early November, but for sure October, like, just get out in the woods, walk around, read sign, bump deer, make mistakes. Like, that's the best way to learn. Like, figure out, like, you're walking through and you hear like scrape, wow, this is getting thick, boom, you bump a buck out of bedding, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense.
And then try to learn from it.
Yeah, what was the wind doing? You know, why was he there? How fresh were these scrapes? You know, how deep are you in from axe? Like, that's the only way you're going to learn. Like, a lot of us have already been through those trials. That's why it's easy for us to dive bomb him to a spot calculated and kill him, because it's like, we've messed it up 15 times, so we know now what to do, and even still we get beat. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the best ways to learn. And even still, like, anytime you're in the woods, just being observant about all of this stuff is huge for your success throughout the season. So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of where we're at. We're shifting in that mindset here pretty quickly from the habitat and the off-season stuff to the strategic side of hunting, which is fun. You know, that's this line we're dancing right now, where the stands are going to be. What are these bucks going to do either now or anticipating in the fall? And really, you know, what are the ones we're hunting on summer patterns, which kind of stretches into even the first week of Ohio season. And then immediately, like, patterns are going to change and everything kind of goes out the window. So yeah, we're just starting to strategically lay that out, and
kind of inventory mode here too. It's exciting to
inventory mode.
Starting to see some bucks show up with some.
What farms are you going to be in the game on a buck that you're looking for, and which ones are you going to have to make a move on?
Yeah,
that's the big pieces of it.
At some point, you just buckle into, as far, you know, what bucks are there to hunt. It's just, you know, hey, you know, so we know we've done the work. You know, we know it's a good farm. You just wait. You know, it's like, ride them out, and, you know, different bucks will show themselves and you just freaking, when it's time to go, you go.
That's it, man. So anyways, we appreciate everyone listening to Farm Companion on this Sunday. Probably only a couple more months of this one before we're in Hunt Companion mode. So hopefully you guys are getting fired up and finishing up those farm projects and starting to get into the mode of actually strategizing around the hunt side. But we appreciate you guys listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Farm Companion.
Take me